So good morning. My name is Krystle West, and I'm the second vice chair for the Gander and Area Chamber of Commerce. I would like to welcome you all to Central MinEx 2026 Mineral Industrial Showcase. Before we start, I would like to give the land acknowledgement, as we do at all of our events. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is in traditional Mi'kmaq territory, and we acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, the Mi'kmaq, the Innu, and the Inuit of this province. The Chamber of Commerce is all about connecting people, and as in the mining sector, it continues to grow here in central Newfoundland. We are proud to bring together prospectors, suppliers, explorers, miners, and so many more at Central MinEx. We hope that you will take the opportunity to network and meet new partners and people at this conference. We love hearing about the connections being made on our trade show floor and that lead to lasting business relationships. This year is our biggest trade show ever, with 94 booths on the trade floor and a full prospectors tent as well, giving us more than 100 exhibitors. And we had over 500 youth from all over central Newfoundland attend Newfound Gold's Student Discovery Day yesterday. It was exciting to see them learning about the opportunities that will be available to them as they graduate. Their future is looking very bright. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to thank people that have been working so hard and tirelessly for months to put this event together. Our organizing committee includes Jennifer Mills, Bradley Hunt, Emmeline Williams, Aaron Moore, Leah Penton, Sarah Berry from the Chamber, Dave Quinton and Kelly Sevier from the town of Gander, Hillary Keats and Alexandra Squires from Newfound Gold, Janelle Skeard from the College of North Atlantic, Chris Tuck and Dave Dillon from the Department of Industry, Energy, Technology, and Norm Mercer from the Newfoundland and Labrador Prospectors Association, in partnership with geologist Peter Dimmel. So, today the technical sessions will take place over the next 2 days. They have been put together by a team made of some amazing people. They are from the mining industry, including our co-chairs, Alexandra Squire and Janelle Skeard, Brad Eisen from Landmark Surveys, Leah Wells, and Carolina Hernandez, and from the Department of Energy and Mines, Norm Mercer and Peter Dimmel. Finally, we also have a public outreach committee that organized our public events, including our youth science fairs, that was sponsored by Equinox Gold and Newfound Gold's Student Discovery Day that kicked off the conference yesterday morning. The committee is led by Jennifer Strickland from the Chamber of Commerce and from the College of North Atlantic. It also includes Monica Squires from the Department of Energy and Mines, Natasha Miller with mining see, the coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Natasha Miller with Mining Industry NL, Will Myers with Mining Industry Human Resources Council, geologist Casey Stone, and Kendra Revoy with Newfound Gold. These individuals have generously given us their time and have been dedicated to making this event a reality. And we are very grateful for everyone that has worked to make this happen. I would also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. We couldn't run the conference without you, and we're very appreciative of all the support that you've given us and provided the vendors. Please, we have a very busy day ahead of us, so with some amazing sessions and panels planned throughout the day. Just a reminder, the refreshment breaks will be held in the Sports Hall of Fame, where you're registered and where our lunch is today, sponsored by Eastern Analytical. This will take place in the cafeteria. Happy hour will start at 4 p.m. today, so don't forget to stop by the sponsors, PAL Airlines and Air Borealis, to say hi. And tonight, we have our cocktail reception at the International Lounge in the Gander International Airport. It's sponsored by Newfoundland Gold, and the entertainment's sponsored by Pirate Gold. We also encourage everyone to park at the hotels and take the hospitality transportation coach bus to the venue. Our hospitality transportation is brought to you by Aramark Canada Limited. So, now I'm very pleased to introduce Mayor Percy Farwell from the town of Gander. The town has been a big partner with us since we first began talking about developing this conference. And we're very pleased to have him as a co-host for our event. So, if Percy could join me on the stage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we're not exactly standing room only, but I understand. By the way, Krystle has, introduced me as here on behalf of the town of Gander. Krystle herself is actually one of our councillors here in Gander too. We're that kind of town. We have people that have their fingers in a lot of different pies at any point in time. She also thanked a lot of organizations and representatives of organizations who have participated in the planning of this event. One slight oversight, I think, is that we didn't have anybody from Environment Canada, because I think we could have used some help with the weather. Although I prefer to think of it as kind of today's weather as kind of a glass half full, and I don't think we're going to lose any participants to visits to the beach or anything while this event is going on. So it's all good. On behalf of the town of Gander, I certainly want to welcome everybody. Those of you that have made it here so far this morning, really appreciate your presence here. We really appreciate having this event hosted here annually. It's a sector that is critically important, obviously, to this province, and particularly in recent years, critically important to central Newfoundland and specifically to Gander. We have a growing presence of the industry here in our town and in this area, and we will look forward to being a partner in the growth of the sector, particularly here in this area, with other communities in the region who will be, myself and some other representatives of other communities will be participants in a panel later on this morning, talking about those sorts of things. But the mining sector is something that is a very important, exciting growth sector for us here in central Newfoundland, and we don't want to mess it up. We want to be active participants and supporters and advocators and facilitators, and try to grow with this sector here. And these sorts of sessions and conferences are very important to all of us learning more about the industry. Some of you have been in this industry for a long time and have a lot to teach and a lot of experience to draw on in doing that. and it's a great opportunity for whatever your role is in this sector to all come together, have some important technical sessions to get some updated information and to discuss about opportunities and challenges and these sorts of things. But also, of course, to have sometimes it's the more valuable part of these sorts of sessions is the networking and the chances to be physically face-to-face in this Zoom world, to be physically face-to-face and have discussions casually over a drink, over a cup of coffee or whatever, and for younger people to, as part of this program, to be able to learn a bit more about the sector and how they may get themselves involved in it, perhaps, and that's going to be important, obviously, to the sector itself as it moves forward and is looking for more participants and a workforce and so on. So really thankful that you're here. Really thankful for the actual conference itself. Whatever we can do to make your time more enjoyable here, short of changing the weather. We're happy to do, and anybody has any suggestions about I think I can speak, I'm not on the committee, but I think I can speak on behalf of the committee in saying if anybody has any suggestions as to how we can improve this going forward, because there's always ways to improve it. Anyone has any suggestions, feel free to find someone from the committee and make those suggestions known, because we're looking to make this bigger and better every year as it goes along. So thanks everybody for being here. Enjoy your stay and have a good few days of networking and learning and sharing and maybe most importantly having some fun with each other too. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Farwell. So, finally, I'd like to thank you all for coming and supporting Central MinEx. We truly appreciate the support and hope that the connections here benefit your business and your organization. Together, we're making big things happen here in Central Newfoundland, and it's something very, very much to be proud of. So we are pleased now to introduce our first session chair of the day. So Alexandria Squires from Newfound Gold will be joining me here on the stage. Thank you, Alexandria.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. To keep us on track and to start the day, I invite Brad Eisen, President of Landmark Surveys and Engineering, as our session sponsor this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for everybody that braved it this morning to come out. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brad Eisen. I'm the president of Landmark Surveys and Engineering. We are a local multidisciplinary surveying and geomatics engineering firm based in Central. We have an office in Gander and an office in Grand Falls. And really proud to be sponsoring this event, and great to see a strong turnout this year again, and see everybody get out. I just want to take the couple minutes I have here today to do this a little differently. I'm not going to spend much time talking about Landmark services, but I did want to talk about something that I think is really important to the mining industry, and that's the role that local businesses play in not just being part of projects, but being part of a sustainable industry. So I actually stood here in 2023 as the chair of the inaugural Chamber of Commerce Central MinEx, and at that time we had a pretty simple goal. We wanted to bring local businesses in the region and the province together and to connect them with the industry and try to get everybody to kind of understand and educate each other. And I think after the last few years, it's fair to say we're really seeing that start to happen. A few years ago, Landmark was a much smaller company than we are now. We were doing good work, and we had some, some mining and energy experience from over the years, but we were still trying to break into that first project to give us the experience that we needed. And suddenly we got that opportunity with Marathon Gold, which is now Equinox Gold, of course. And at that time, we weren't the biggest firm. We didn't have the large project experience that some of the national firms had, and we didn't have the depth of resources that we have today. We were still building, but we were given a shot, and that opportunity changed the trajectory of our business. It allowed us to invest in people and technology, and allowed us to build the capability to support projects from early stage land work right through to construction and operations. And it started with one project team choosing to take a bet on a local business. Because when local businesses are brought into projects in a meaningful way, it does more than just fill a scope or check a box. It builds capacity, it creates partnerships, and it keeps knowledge and experience here in the province. And over time, that compounds. One opportunity turns into a stronger company, that company supports the next project and the next one, and before long, you have a local ecosystem that can deliver at a very high level. And we're seeing that happen right now. There's a lot of activity across Newfoundland and Labrador. And the projects that will be the most successful are not just the ones that extract value, but those that help build capability around them in this province. Developers, contractors, local companies working together as partners. So I'll leave you with this. The opportunity in the province is real. I think everybody in this room and attending this conference knows that. But the projects that are going to stand out here are not just the ones that get built, they're going to be the ones that leave something sustainable behind. And that's stronger local companies, better partnerships, more capability here at home. We're a local company that grew because somebody gave us a shot to do so. And now we have that capability to bring that back to the next generation of projects. That's the ecosystem. And when it works, it's not just good for one project, it's how you build an industry. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Brad. And for those who missed Brad's opening of our technical program yesterday, as one of your co-chairs for the technical committee for Central MinEx, I just want to give you an overview of our program. The technical program this year has been built on 4 core pillars that will shape the conversations and learning that I hope you will all take away from over the next couple days here. Those 4 pillars are innovation, where we're showcasing new technologies and advancements that support safer and more efficient exploration and mining efforts. Inclusion, highlighting strategies for creating respectful, welcoming workplaces that improve retention and attract new talent to the industry. Implementation, examining the essential practices companies need to operate responsibly, environmental stewardship, permitting, and earning social license. And insight, providing updates on current exploration and mining activities across the region to keep stakeholders informed and connected. So kicking off today is our implementation session. And we are starting with Dr. Keith Storey, who will be our session keynote presenting Mining and Community Benefits, a Changing Landscape. Yes, you can clap. Good morning. So,
Need that.
that's your go.
Let's move on.
That's your go button,
Okay.
yeah. And then
Oh, there we go.
Aaron's got the timer there, so you can just make sure you stay on
Good.
there.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good morning. I can't see you, but thank you for coming. Anyway, I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me to participate in this particular part of the program, as it's an area that I've been working in for some time, and so it's sort of dear to my heart. The theme is mining and community benefits, a changing landscape, and the panel, I believe, was asked to comment on community benefits, local capacity building, long-term economic participation and social outcomes. And so I thought what I might do as, what shall I say, the introductory act before the big band comes on to play later, is to try and set the context a little bit by describing the evolution of that community benefits process with some examples, and then to talk about the ways in which the mining technology in particular is changing the landscape, in the sense that I think we're going to have to find new ways in which we address the whole community benefits question. So that's my task, and we'll start with a little bit of history. We go back into the 1930s, the current thinking then was that frontier development could best be achieved through the development of staples, in this case minerals as staples, which through development of infrastructure and economic linkages would lead to development in remote regions. Then along came the war, and then in the post-war period, what we see is dramatic increases in demand for mineral resources. We see a great deal more interest on the part of government in fostering development in the north. Think about Diefenbaker's programs, Road to Resources program, etc. And then, in addition, there were a whole set of new technologies which came into being, which allowed exploration in areas which had not previously been easy or the case. In the 1960s, Staples theory began to be questioned, in the sense that you may have economic linkages, but more often there were economic leakages. So the benefits would tend to flow out from the resource regions into very often larger urban centres. And people in those frontier regions were more disadvantaged than advantaged by resource development. And this came to a sort of culminating period in the early 1970s when we had the Mackenzie Valley Pipeline and the Berger Inquiry, which essentially put a moratorium for a while on much northern development. That said, we did see the beginnings of approaches to community development, in the sense that the first impact benefits agreements were signed in the early part of the 1970s. We've seen significant progress since then. In fact, between 2000 and 2023, there were over 500 benefits agreements signed in Canada between companies and primarily indigenous communities in the north. So we've seen a lot of progress, but what I'd like to suggest today is that we can do better. And there are changes which are ongoing, which are going to cause us to have to do better. I'd like to try and explain some of those. The traditional pillars of community agreements are as follows. We have the classic ones of employment and training, where companies will offer programs to local people in particular to encourage them to work in the industry, to get that experience, to get that training, and become members of that industrial society, if you like. So employment and training is one. Local procurement, in the sense of encouraging local business, is another. And a third is that of involvement in environmental stewardship. These are all quite familiar to you, I'm sure. More recently, I think we've seen some newer approaches which address questions of financial and equity provisions, in that we're seeing more arrangements between companies and communities in which companies pay royalties, there's profit sharing, in some cases equity ownership, and much closer relationships between the companies and communities. These are the traditional approaches to community benefits. Sometimes they've worked better than others. This particular example is one where we'll start with one that didn't work very well. The Nanisivik mine, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, operated between 1976 and 2002, and I think can be best described as an experiment on the part of the federal government to try and involve Inuit workers in particular in the mineral industry, And, well, I guess it was also something of an experiment in operating in a high Arctic environment, which hadn't been done terribly often before that. The idea of the federal government was to encourage northern and particularly Indigenous employment, and the target that they set was for 60% of those employed being Northerners and Indigenous people. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. The peak of what I'll call local employment was reached a couple of years after the mine first opened, and it was only about 28%. And subsequently, and right up until the end of the project, those numbers declined. And at best, at the end, it was probably only in the order of about 10% of northern employment. Indigenous people in this particular case were not particularly interested in working in the mining sector. They didn't get a lot of encouragement from the company, and I think basically the federal government wrote this off as a bad experiment. And so that wasn't very successful. But in addition, when the project finished, the process, the practice at that time, was to demolish the town that had been constructed there, to relocate the people that were living there elsewhere, and also there was supposed to be a fairly extensive mine reclamation process, and I don't think that happened particularly effectively. There was not enough commitment, there was not the right attitudes, and I don't think it was a good example to set for future projects at all. Now, fortunately, one of the next ones that occurred was significantly more successful. This is the Rio Tinto Diamond project, the Diavik project, and that was another fairly long-term project, 20 years or more. And here, it in fact closed last month, finally. And while there's some cleanup to be done, the work there is essentially finished. In 2025, there are about 1,000 people working there, of whom roughly 40% were northern residents and 15% Indigenous. Still not high numbers, but nonetheless more significant than a lot of other experiences. But what did happen was that there was significant effort to encourage local business involvement in the process. And as you can see from the numbers here, over the course of the life of the project, we had roughly $7 billion invested in northern business and another $3.5 billion in Indigenous business. Quite significant opportunities for businesses in the area. There are also participation agreements and a host of different programs to encourage skills development. Infrastructure was created, including an airstrip. There was a dementia facility constructed in the region, an arena, and other similar things. And a significant renewable energy project, which was a hybrid wind diesel project, which was designed to, shall we say, economize on the use of diesel in the region. And the, shall we say, repatriation of those assets to the community is an ongoing process at the moment. A lot more commitment in this case, a lot more investment in the region, the community. But my question is, when all's said and done, what will this region look like in another 5 years after the mine is fully wound up, where are the people going to work that acquired the skills working on this project? Is there going to be anything else in the area? Perhaps, perhaps not. If they're going to continue to work in the occupations for which they've been trained, then the most likely situation is they're going to have to move somewhere else to do that, which is not going to necessarily benefit the local region. So while this was a much more successful investment of time, energy, resources to encourage community development, I wonder what people will say in a few years' time, looking back on this and asking what the legacy of this project was for sustainable development in the region. And this process is still ongoing. The Raglan mine has expected life until about 2041, and they too have spent a significant amount of energy and been quite successful in engaging local people in the mining in the area. And so there's about 1,300 people work there at the moment, of whom about 20% are Inuit. And through their Tatumagami, or Tamatumani, I beg your pardon, program, and the RIDE program introduced in 2013. These have encouraged local people and in many ways personalised their work programs to accommodate their current skill levels, their capabilities and so forth, and a lot of trouble has been taken to engage Inuit workers in mining in the area. So in that respect, it's been quite successful. But I would ask the same question as before. If the mine closes, what happens? And so in terms of long-term sustainability, I think we're left with a number of unanswered questions as far as the traditional approaches to community development are concerned. When it comes to change, this is, I think, a very interesting process which is ongoing at the moment, and which I think is going to cause us to have to rethink some of the things that we do. If you think back into the 1960s to the 1980s, often referred to as the third industrial revolution. This was the era of digitization, in which analog information was converted to digital information. The introduction of computers. I can remember, first of all, starting off with punch cards, and then eventually in about 1980, getting my own personal computer, in which I could do things from my desktop. What a change. All of this was quite wonderful. But what happened since then is that while we've converted data into a much more manageable form, into a digital form, the next era, the so-called Industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution, is now one of digitalization, in which what is happening is that we're learning how to use that data in new ways to create new products and new processes. And so we're seeing automation becoming more and more common in the mining sector. We're seeing predictive maintenance. You can't do predictive maintenance without data. We have AI being used to help us with the kind of analyses that we were hearing about, the spectral analysis that we were hearing about yesterday for mineral cores. We are seeing a whole variety of new products and processes emerge from this era, and we're seeing a new culture within, sorry, I keep banging these things. We're seeing a new culture in the industry which is changing the nature of the mining industry. Slowly, more slowly than in many other sectors, I have to say, but nonetheless, it's happening. We're now moving into, if not we're into, a new era. And that has a whole series of implications for community benefits. Now, the first case, we have the situation where automation has the potential to result in job losses. And not only job losses, but a series of changes in that new jobs will be created from the new technologies, but they will require new skills and a different breed of people, almost, to perform those new tasks. So major changes in the labour supply issue, or labour demand and supply issue. And if I can pause for a moment for a bit of a advertising break, if that's appropriate. I have a research project ongoing at university which is looking at employment in Newfoundland and Labrador mining. And what we're interested in is what new technologies mining companies are adopting. What sorts of skill requirements are those new technologies demanding? And how are those companies responding to those new demands? Are you finding the people? I suspect that it's becoming increasingly difficult. And I would like to know more about the barriers and the potential opportunities that you think are there to try and remedy those problems. And if any of you would like to talk further about that, I'd be very grateful indeed. Thank you. And we will now return to normal programming. Thank you. Anyway, not only are we seeing changes in the kinds of jobs that are being required and the requirements for those jobs, we're also seeing changes in where those jobs are undertaken. Let me give you a couple of examples, both of job losses and relocation. Here in the Athabasca oil sands, Suncor decided that in 2018 it was going to introduce, over a 6-year period, 150 autonomous load haul vehicles. A very significant investment and representing a very significant change in the way of working there. Significant benefits to both workers and the company in terms of safety, in terms of productivity, and reduction of labour costs. But at a cost. 500 jobs were expected to be lost, maybe 100 new jobs created as controllers of the new fleet and the new system. What happened to that 400? We don't really know, is the question. Not a lot of information coming out from the company in terms of where those people have gone. Some were undoubtedly retrained to become those new controllers. Some may have been redeployed to other functions within the company. Others may have been made redundant. We don't know what's happening in that particular case. We do know something a little bit more about the oil sands in general. The boom in the oil sands started in the early 2000s, a bit of a blip around 2008 with the financial crisis, then more growth until roughly 2014 when prices collapsed, and all of a sudden there had to be a rethink in the companies about how they did business. There was no concern up to this point about productivity. All of a sudden, lean operations and productivity became key priorities. And what we've seen in the subsequent period, 2014 to 2019, that 5-year period, companies changed quite significantly in terms of the way they did their business. No new greenfield sites. The focus was all on let's make our current sites more productive. Let's optimize activities there. And they have been very successful in that production of oil from the oil sands in that 5-year period went up 23%. But at the same time, this lean production model has meant that 23%, a 23% decrease in labour. Where are all those people gone? Now, most of the people that work in the oil sands either come from Alberta itself or nearby BC, but there's a hell of a lot of Newfoundlanders working out there who may not be there. And this situation, I suggest, is only going to continue, that we're going to have more production with fewer people. If I talk about job relocation, a couple of examples there. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Cal Tire. And Cal Tire is an example of numerous companies which are now not necessarily selling their products as final sales, but rather selling services to the mining industry. And Cal Tire is in the tyre business. These load haul vehicles, 6 tyres, each tyre might cost something in the order of $90,000, depending on how it's used, where it's used. It might have a life expectancy of anything from 6 to 14 months. That's a very expensive piece of equipment, or pieces of equipment. Cal Tire is able to help in terms of doing predictive maintenance. And what they've done is to introduce these thermal scanners, which essentially take pictures of the tyres as the truck passes by, avoids the need for the truck to go into the garage to be inspected and so forth. But they take the pictures, the images are then sent to a central clearinghouse, not at the mine site, where you've got the appropriate experts who can look at that data to run different kinds of models to see what not only is happening, but what will happen, and then can pass that information back to the fleet managers at the mine or arrange for their own people to go in and help fix the problem. The point I'm making is that the people doing this work are not at the mine site. And increasingly, as more and more contracting out goes on, that is the pattern that is happening. The work is not necessarily being done at the mine site. This is the classic case. This is the original case of relocation. Down in the bottom right-hand corner there, is Australia, and the red area is the Pilbara, the iron ore mining area. This is Rio Tinto's, I'm sorry if it's not terribly clear from where you're sitting, but this is Rio Tinto's operations in the Pilbara. They run 2 ports with 4 terminals. They run 17 iron ore mines. There's 2,000 kilometres of railway, all of which use autonomous trains, and the train drivers are only required for that last mile into the port itself. And 80% of their load haul vehicles are autonomous, and they've got 4 power stations operating there. But where are the people that run these activities? They're in Perth, 1,300 kilometres away. This was the first integrated remote operations site anywhere, and it's still one of the preeminent ones. Although in Perth, I'm going to kill myself with this, aren't I? In Perth, BHP, Fortescue, Roy Hill, as well as Rio Tinto, and other companies have similar kinds of operations for their mines. It's a warehouse full of screens. There's a total of about 450 employees there who essentially mined the machines that are doing the work in the Pilbara. Some of these people have never been to the Pilbara. Remote operations. The jobs are now in Perth. They're not in the Pilbara. How do the people in the Pilbara feel about that? I can't imagine that they're very pleased. The final point I make here is that if communities are going to be losing jobs because they've gone somewhere else, if communities are going to be losing jobs because the skills that are required can't be found locally, then those host mining communities are going to be asking the question, well, what benefit is mining to us? What's the value proposition here? What do we get out of this? And this is what prompts me to suggest that we have to rethink the kinds of benefits that mining can offer to these regions. And it may not be that mining jobs, either directly or indirectly in terms of support functions, are the way to go in the future. We may need to be thinking rather bigger. Let me give you a couple of examples where this is happening. Anglo-American has a Future Smart program in which it's looking at a variety of technologies which it might introduce at its mines, which will benefit the company in terms of productivity, and all of those other important variables, lower costs, etc., etc. But they recognise that not all of these changes that they might wish to adopt necessarily benefit local communities. And so what they've done is to come up with the idea of this social license to innovate. And in this copper mine in Peru, where there's an autonomous set of vehicles and drills, they've committed to no job losses. Now, how do you do that? Well, in some cases, you retrain people for the new positions. In other cases, you redeploy, and they seem to be doing well, but that's a big commitment to make. The other thing that they've done, in addition to this, is to say, let's invest in people.
Sorry to interrupt. Just, we're coming in a little bit short on time. You want to just go up?
Finish? Okay.
Please, thank you.
Shut up was the word. Oh, sorry, wrap up, I beg your pardon. Anyway, so they've invested in 1,500 opportunities for people to engage in non-mining activities. So that's one approach, and I'll leap to my last one. There's a lot of information on this slide, and I apologise for that. This is a more local example. It's a project I was working on for the Northern Coalition. Northern Coalition is a group of 5 major, some are smaller than others, organisations, primarily Inuit organisations operating on the East Coast. What they have in common is that they all have licenses to fish shrimp and Greenland halibut in the Labrador Sea. The thing is that other than one company, they don't fish it. What they do is let other companies fish for them. Those other companies then pay royalties, and what the members of the Northern Coalition do is to reinvest those profits into often non-mining activities, or certainly non-fishing activities, in order to benefit the people in their organisations. They are for-profit organisations. They are reinvesting for their people. Just some of the things that they've done. So one of the companies, the Labrador Shrimp Company, the bank's closed in Labrador. They couldn't find another bank willing to take on the project, and so what they did is start their own credit union. That was in the 1980s. They've got 6 credit union offices. It's a very well funded and organisation. They've got something like 9,000 members, and it serves Labrador and parts of Newfoundland. They're taking money from one activity and investing it in something which they consider to be more appropriate to their needs. And there are some other examples here. Makovic Corporation, for example, has decided not to get into fishing, but to take the fishing money and put it into airlines. So Canadian North, they're in partnership with that airline, and they own Air Inuit on their own. These are seen as more appropriate to their needs than other kinds of activity. One could take the mining sector and say, okay, shut up. Sorry, guys.
It's a wonderful presentation.
Yeah, right, okay. Well, thank you.
Wait, if you want to continue to your summary slide at the
Right.
end, just to quickly.
Last slide. I apologise, everybody. Anyway, community benefits. We're doing better. I think we can do better. The changing landscape means we're going to have to do better. And we need to think bigger, not just mining activities, but other things that the communities want and which are seen to be more valuable to them. So I'm sure our panel is going to fill us in on a lot more detail, and I'm sure they'll be much more economical of time than I've been. I apologise for that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dan. No,